Once again, we're doing something a little different on the channel, and I make relevance to the fact that people often ask me what to look for when they're purchasing a cue. Well, I like to think I know what a good cue looks like and what it feels like, but I'd like to go a little deeper than that. And I've come along to a very reputable cue making company in Nottinghamshire called Cuecraft. Neil, can you just show me what the first thing is you look for when you're selecting a piece of wood to make a cue?
My pleasure. Let me just grab a couple of pieces of ash. And what we're looking for is, in a high quality cue, a nice straight grain.
Can I have a look myself?
Of course. And if you look down those two shafts, you'll see this one's got a lovely straight grain and this one's a little bit wavy. So that will definitely become a snooker cue.
Oh yes, even to my novice eye that's plainly obvious. This one's straight grain, this one's rather crooked.
Yeah.
So that would be used to make a good quality cue.
Absolutely.
And would this be discarded or
oh,
thrown away?
No, we never throw anything away, Barry. That would probably end up being a rest shaft.
Lovely. So this would never be used to make a cue. It wouldn't be good enough for your...
it's too wavy.
Yeah, okay. So we'll put that to one side for now. And the next process is to shape this into some sort of a cue.
Yeah, I'll show you the next process.
Okay.
Just put that one back.
Well, thanks a lot.
No problem.
Lovely.
So Barry, we've chosen our ash shaft. The next step is to choose a butt. So we've got rosewood or ebony. So if you would like to choose one of these beautiful woods.
Can I feel them?
Of course.
Well, I know that the ebony is a very dense and heavy wood. Is this lighter in weight, the rosewood?
Yeah, naturally lighter than ebony. Obviously ebony is probably one of the densest woods in the world, hence why it creates the balance of the cue.
I understand, yeah. So with this being lighter in weight, if I wanted a fairly heavy cue, would I have to add a metal weight at all?
Yeah, if you were to choose a 19, 20 ounce cue, naturally this cue would never come out at that weight. So we would have to add weight to that butt.
I see. But that's normally not necessary with the ebony?
No, with an ebony cue, because it's so naturally weighted, it's very rare we would have to add weight to it.
Right. Well, I've already got an ebony butt on my cue, and seeing as how you're making this one for me, I think I'd like to choose the rosewood, please.
Fantastic.
Great, thank you.
The next stage, making this one-piece hand-spliced rosewood cue, is to turn the ash shaft, which we've done, as you can see, and we need to add 2 flats ready to accept the rosewood wedges.
Right.
As you can see, Ken is planing away to add one of the flats. Once he's created that side, he'll then add that one.
Got you.
From there, we will then glue 4 wedges, rosewood wedges, to the cue. Then they get planed again, ready to accept the next 2.
Yep, got you.
We've already got one done here, so we've added the 2 wedges and we've planed this back to flat, ready to accept the next 2 wedges either side.
So it's interesting to note that the ash goes all the way to the end of the cue.
On a one-piece cue, Barry, that's how it's created.
Good.
Yeah. Whether this is rosewood or ebony.
Because some players will obviously say that on a one-piece cue they get a different feel to a 3/4 butt joint.
Yep.
So it's interesting to note that on the one-piece cue, this ash does go all the way to the end.
It does.
Thank you very much.
So Barry, the next step in the process is to glue on the last 2 wedges to the prepared shaft that we've just watched Ken finish. And to make it a little bit more interesting, we're going to add a veneer and an exotic wedge. So if you'd like to choose a coloured veneer, Barry.
Well, I've certainly got a wide selection, ranging from all sorts of colours, but seeing as our blue is my favourite, I'll choose that one.
Okay, blue it is. And finally, if you just like to choose a wedge, as you can see, we've got a few exotic woods here. This one here is Zebrano. Sorry, that one's Zebrano. We've got some Coca-Cola, we've got some olive wood, but choose one of those wedges, Barry, and we'll add that as well.
Well, I don't want to be too fancy, but equally I want it to look like my cue. So I've got a rosewood butt, the blue veneer, and probably something nice and light. How's that? Those two seem to go together.
Very nice. Yeah, very subtle.
Thank you.
It's a nice, nice ash wedge. So the next process is to take the blue veneer and the ash wedge and glue these to the prepared shaft.
So Neil, we're getting to the final stages. What comes next?
The next step is to plane the cue to the customer's dimensions and then take the cue to be ferruled. As you can see, we've got a brass ferrule and a stainless steel one. Which one would you like?
Well, I'm used to brass, so I'll stick with the brass if I may.
Okay, Sean, can you fit the brass ferrule, please?
And the idea of the brass ferrule is just to protect the cue, am I right?
To protect the ash, yep, from all the impact.
So the protruding pieces of wood, that'll be taken off, I assume, to facilitate the tip?
Yep, they just literally slice that piece off and it's absolutely flush with the top of the ferrule. So now, as you can see, Barry, that is absolutely perfectly flush with the top of the cue, ready to accept the tip.
Yeah, lovely. I often get frustrated when I see players that take a tip off and they start filing this ferrule to try and get a flat surface. This is already a machined flat surface.
Yeah.
There's no need to touch it ever again, is there?
When that tip comes off or they want to replace the tip, all they need to do is ensure all the old glue's off, and you don't need a file to do that.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
So now we're at the sanding stage. Sean is at the final stages of that, but we've started with a coarse grit sandpaper, then we go all the way down all the different stages to the super fine sandpaper that he's using now. And this is the last stage before we go to finishing the cue.
Okay.
The last step before finally polishing the cue is to bring the grain of the ash out. So Sean's adding now what we call a grain fill product, and he'll just cover the whole shaft in the grain fill.
So he's put the grain fill on. It looks awfully dark at this stage. What's the next process now?
Yeah, so the grain fill's been on for the past 24 hours to dry and soak into the cue. And basically Sean's now just taking the surplus grain fill off, and as you'll see, it will start to go lighter and lighter, and what you'll be left with is the figuring of the ash just brought out by this grain fill. So Barry, here we are, just adding the mini butt joint to your new cue.
Right.
Not a lot to say, so let's just watch Ken fit that.
Do all the manufacturers have their own type of joint?
Yeah, all manufacturers have their own male and female joint for their cues.
So how much of that threaded portion is going in back? A couple of inches? And that will be nice and secure, I take it, yeah?
And there it is.
Lovely.
Finished mini butt joint and radius at the bottom. Here we are with the final finished cue. As you can see, the butt joint's all in and polished, ready to accept a little mini butt. The lads have just made solid rosewood mini butt that goes straight into the bottom of your cue. And there you are, Barry.
That's
one
lovely.
Finished, hand spliced
So this
rosewood
has gone through,
cue.
This has gone through quite a number of polishing procedures.
Intense polishing, top to bottom, numerous processes we use. No varnish whatsoever, it's all oils.
And that feels lovely, thank you very much. What would you recommend now for keeping it in this state, to be honest?
It's quite simple really, Barry. Just the most important thing is storing it in a good quality case.
Okay.
And never lean it against a wall,
Right.
never leave it in the boot of your car, and never leave it near a heat source.
Okay.
And that's it, should last you a very, very long time.
A lot of people use a damp cloth because the cues do get grubby over a period of time. And one of your fitters there was telling me all you need is a sheet of paper.
Yeah, it's one of the little tips of the trade. Just get a piece of clean A4 paper, screw it up like a rag, and polish the cue with that piece of paper. And you'll see the grime appear on the white piece of paper, and just keep doing it till the paper's clean.
Lovely.
And it brings it up as that is there.
Thank you very much. I'll try it in the case.
Yeah.
So you recommend a good quality case to keep the cue in?
Essential, Barry, essential. This is a cue case we make ourselves, and the main advantages to a quality case is the fact it traps the cue nice and tight, so it's not going to rattle around inside. So they are quite difficult to close when they're new. You can see that's all in there now, your cue, your mini button, your extension. Lovely. And that's not going anywhere inside.
Yep, lovely. I'm chuffed. Chuffed you well. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
I see you've got quite an array of cues here, ranging from quite expensive to relatively cheap. What are the attributes of a good cue as opposed to the cheaper variety?
Well, there's 4 categories really within our range of cues. You've got hand spliced ebony cues. You've got machine spliced ebony cues. You can tell they're machine spliced by the sharp points.
Uh-huh.
And then we've got a couple of hand spliced rosewood cues, as is yours.
Yeah.
And then we've got a few machine spliced rosewood cues.
Right.
So they do vary, in price, as you said, quite dramatically. But what you're really paying for is ebony is very expensive itself.
Yeah.
And then it's the intricacy of the detail within the butts.
Right.
So for example, this cue here is what we call tulip spliced. So the pattern goes all the way around.
Yeah.
Against the one that we've just made for yourself that's just got the one wedge and a veneer on the front.
So that would be very labour intensive.
Very labour intensive. It takes a long time to create that one.
Yeah.
And that particular one has got more ebony in it.
Yeah.
So it's far more naturally balanced. And the shaft itself is a very straight grain shaft. And aesthetically you can see the perfectly spaced ash darts running through those cues.
Yeah.
So the main reason they are our premium range is the detail in the butt, the extra ebony and the quality of the shaft.
I see.
When you come down to these are still top end hand spliced cues, but there's less detail in the butt and slightly less amount of ebony and not as much perfection within the piece of ash.
I understand. Yeah.
But they're still high-end quality cues for anybody to use. And it's case becomes a budget thing.
Right.
So yeah.
In your experience, though, I mean, the fact that if we go back to the ash shaft, we've got a very straight grain, which obviously you've selected that wood.
Yep.
If we come to something that's got, shall we say, not quite so good as that,
Yep.
doesn't really affect the playing quality, does it?
I would say no, Barry. It really is an aesthetic thing. Some players do use the ash darts to sight.
Yes.
So they may be looking at the last couple of darts.
I see.
We get requests where a customer doesn't want one at the very top of the shaft.
Right.
So we obviously try our best to make the cue for that customer.
Right.
But yeah, from a playing point of view, no.
Can I just mention that from a coaching point of view, one of the things that I'm particularly interested in is the thickness of the butt.
Okay.
I like to be able to make a nice circle with the front of my hand.
Okay.
I mean, this is nice slim butt here, but some manufacturers make them too thick.
Okay.
Do you do a variety of thickness?
Yeah,
on the
again,
butt?
we get lots of requests for different diameter butts.
Lovely.
They can start at 31 mil and they may go down to 24, 25. So again, if the customer really knows what they want, we will do our absolute best to make that cue to their exact specification.
Yeah. And you would possibly advise them in some form as well?
We try our best, but when the customer knows what they want, they really know what they want.
Okay, that's fine. A lovely piece of wood, lovely cue.
Here we are, Barry. Here is your cue that we've managed to make for you today in a nice case. And I really hope you've enjoyed watching your cue being made today.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks a lot. I've learned a lot about how a cue is made. Very impressed with the end result. Your technicians do a wonderful job. And I think the main thing they've come across to me is how you select a nice piece of wood, how labour intensive it is to, well, particularly at the butt end. Absolutely magic. I'll take this away with great pride and hopefully use it and see if we can make the odd century now.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot, Neil.
My pleasure, Barry.
Thanks.